Okay, so in this video, we are going to explore how do you solve quadratic equations by taking square roots. That kind of makes sense, right? Because we've got a squared in there somewhere and we want to undo it. So sometimes we have equations that really set themselves up really nicely for using this technique. All right, so really there's 3 steps in solving quadratics in this way. First, isolate the expression that is being squared. Okay. Sometimes it's just going to be x being squared, but other times it's going to be a whole expression. Whatever is being squared, we want it by itself. Second thing, we're going to solve for x. We're going to take our square root of both sides, and remember, when we take a square root of both sides and it involves a variable, it's going to require plus and minus there, plus or minus. All right, and then we're going to simplify and solve for x. Almost always there should be 2 answers, and that really comes back to using the plus or minus thing. All right, so here's a couple of examples we're going to work through together, and they help us understand kind of this process. So we're going to start with this first one, and I'm going to step to this side. And we are going to go to step 1. Isolate the expression being squared. Well, first I need to determine what's being squared here. And this is kind of tricky because sometimes students would like to say, well, 2x is being squared here. Well, where's that exponent? Is it on 2x or is it on x? That exponent's only on x. So this is what is being squared. I need to get rid of everything else on that side of the equation. So I want to isolate it. Okay, so I want to get rid of this first, the -3, by adding 3 to both sides. 2x squared is equal to 128. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of this 2, because I really want this x squared by itself. So we would get rid of the 2 by dividing it out on both sides. So x squared here is equal to 64. Okay, well that's pretty easy. So now we go to step 2. Take the square root of both sides, and don't forget that plus or minus. Well, if I take the square root of both sides, I get a plus or minus there, and I get x is equal to plus or minus 8. The square root of 64 is 8. So my solution set is -8, comma, +8. All right, fantastic. Now let's come over to this example. Starting with that same step 1. Isolate the expression which is being squared. What's being squared here? Well, this 3x minus 4 is being squared here. So we need to get that all by itself on the left-hand side. Go ahead and divide out the 3. So if I take a 3, dividing that out on both sides, I get 3x minus 4 quantity squared is equal to, what is 54 divided by 3? That's 18. Okay, 18. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I'm going to remember my plus or minus thing going on. So I'm going to square root this, I'm going to square root that, put that plus or minus there, right? And that squared and the square root are inverses, so they negate each other, and we end up with 3x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 18. Well, I know because we've talked about radicals before that this radical can be broken down. Let's go ahead and do that, and let's set up the 2 equations. 3x minus 4 is equal to the positive version, and 3x minus 4 is equal to the negative version. Okay, so 18. Let's do that over here just so we can break that down. Perfect square factor of 18, that's 9. 9 times what is 18? That's 2. So this becomes 3 square root of 2. So we can break this into 2 equations. 3x minus 4 is equal to 3 radical 2, comma, or semicolon. 3x minus 4 is equal to negative 3 radical 2. And then we will go ahead and solve these 2 equations. Add the 4. 3x is equal to. Now I can put the 4 in either place, but if I'm going to add it, I kind of want to just keep it in front, because then I don't have any kind of thought about putting it under the radical. And then I'm going to divide this thing by 3. So 4 plus 3 radical 2 all over 3. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I add the 4. I'm going to keep it in front, but this time I've got a negative. So 3x is equal to 4 minus 3 radical 2. And then I'm going to divide out the 3. So x will equal 4 minus 3 radical 2 all over 3. So I've got my 2 answers, and then I would write my solution set in this way. 4 plus 3 radical 2 all over 3, comma, 4 minus 3 radical 2 all over 3. That's all she wrote. Next time I think we talk about solving using the all-powerful quadratic formula. So I'll see you then.